So this is again writing with new media. This is Shannon Carter, and we are continuing here with some steps to creating your story as offered here by the Digital Storytelling Cookbook at the Center for Digital Storytelling. And we were talking here about the first step, owning your insight, and the way Esperanza came about doing that in terms of creating a story about her nonprofit organization. And she started telling it first by looking at people who were impacted by the program, and then started remembering how the program affected her. She said that remembered those times, how passionate she felt, and how her passion inspired others to take up this work and to give donations to support it. Maybe that's the story, she says aloud, not just what we do, but why we do it, why I do it, and how caring starts with just one person. She calls her cousin and asks if he'd be willing to tell the story of the first projects. He said he'd feel honored. She starts writing and the words just flow. From this beginning story, she connects the Sanchez family's experiences to show how the program became legitimized. And she finishes with a reflection of her own growth and the gift that this work has given her. At midnight, she closes her laptop. Esperanza sees the movie playing in her head. I just know the images to use. And so this then leads us to the second step. So we can think then about not just having an idea, but owning the insights to be drawn from those ideas. And we can see that in each of these stories. That is the kernel of what we want, of the story that we want to tell. So in the second step, they suggest that we need to own the emotions. So as we help storytellers find and clarify what their stories are about and ask them to consider the meaning contained within their stories, crucial. What are the stories about, and what is the meaning contained within the story? We also want to help them become aware of the emotional resonance of their story. By identifying the emotions in the story, they can then decide which emotions they would like to include in their story and how they would like to convey that to their audience. So, what are the emotions in the story? As you shared your story or story idea, what emotions did you experience? Can you identify at what point in sharing your story that you felt certain emotions? If you experienced more than one emotion, were they contrasting? And then from there, the storyteller gains an awareness of their emotional connection to the story. And then they can begin to help decide and think about how others might connect on an emotional level. So to help storytellers decide how to convey emotional content, we ask a set of questions. These are so good. Think about these. Specifically, what emotions will help the audience understand the journey contained within your story? Is there an overall tone that captures a central theme? Can you convey your emotions without directly using feeling words or relying on cliches to describe them? For example, how can you imply the idea of happiness without saying, I felt happy? How can you imply the idea of happiness without saying, I felt happy? How can you imply the feeling of loss, for example, if we go back to the polyphoto story, without actually saying, I miss her? How can we convey that feeling and in our digital image usage and to push those feelings forward? When we reflect on the emotions within our stories, we discover that they can be complex, and with this realization, we oftentimes discover deeper layers of a story's meaning. So, again, owning your insight is the first step, but also owning your emotions, because from there we can gain additional insight. Realization that oftentimes discover deeper layers of a story's meaning. And for example, stories of wedding celebrations can also be about overcoming loneliness and facing new struggles and forging lasting partnerships. Births can be about working through fear, shouldering new responsibility, and so forth. So think in terms of that. Take ownership of the emotions contained within a story. That's going to not only help you figure out what you want to say, but help the audience connect on a deeper level. So emotional alone isn't the goal, but it is one of the methods that you can use in order to get a hold of your story, and that's what is suggested as the second step.